Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
And welcome back, everybody. This is for parents, insight that you're not going to get anywhere else. You're not going to be Googling this and getting these deeper details. How can I say that? This is Good Advice Helps with Dr. Allan Gold, and he has helped so many children over so many years working at the Reed Union School District in California. So much insight, even having him on this show. We've gotten lots of feedback along the way. By the way, I want to add in there, instant feedback, steve@gmail.com, if you have a question for him. And welcome, Allan. How you doing?
Okay, thank you. Good to be back.
Yeah, it's good to have you back here. Lots to talk about. And even before we get there, with us today, we brought her back, and her name is Jessie, and this is somebody that you've known pretty much all her life as you worked with her in a school capacity and more. Tell us about your relationship with Jessie, Allan.
Sure. This is Jessie Glennon, now 21. I met Jessie when she was in kindergarten, and to help her a little bit with some family stuff. And when I met her, she was still 4.5. And when I talked to her teacher after that, I said, she's not 4.5, she's 45. And the reason saying she is an incredible young woman with so much insight and openness to learning. So I worked with Jessie on and off during elementary school and middle school. And then Jessie contacted me a few years ago. She just graduated from college, and she wanted some guidance on career because she wanted to do something that would help other people. So we've reconstructed our relationship, and we have a wonderful relationship where we talk frequently about relationships and career and parenting and money and friends. And so she's been a very, very valuable person for me to be interacting with and giving advice.
Beautiful. Jessie, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you. So nice to be back.
So I had a lot of questions to start out here, and I'm going to take those and put those over to the side for a second and ask you, Jessie, as you look back at growing up, you probably didn't know it then, but you might know it now. Are there things that you realize that you had challenges with navigating through, and that's why you gravitated over to Allan for his help?
Definitely. Yeah. I have this kind of concept that like my life feels like it was very front loaded. I feel like, I'm grateful for this. I really am, but I felt like I faced a good bit of challenges, a good bit of adversity being young. And I'm very grateful for how that helped me develop resiliency and just kind of move forward in the world with, a level of confidence and like ability to, feel like I can face, challenges that come my way, thankfully. But yeah, there were a few difficult circumstances that I went through, a lot of it relating to just the difficulty of having divorced parents, which, is difficult for really any child in that situation. And Dr. Gold was always just an incredible support with offering more than just guidance, like, practical advice as well. Just very tailored to myself and my situation that really helped me kind of navigate things on my own. Because, when you are in a, divorced family situation where you're going between two homes, you kind of, and being an eldest daughter as well, you are growing up kind of quickly and you're doing a lot on your own. There's a lot to manage on your own, especially when both parents are working. And there's also that aspect of always trying to take care of the younger sibling as well. So it was just an incredible support to have Dr. Gold in my life through all of that. My parents separated when I was 4 and I met Dr. Gold when I was 4. So I've known Dr. Gold and had him in my life for as long as I can remember. And my entire family loves him very much. So we're all grateful for him collectively too.
Thank you for sharing that. And I relate to a lot of what you're talking about. The difference was I didn't have him. I wish I did. And when you look back, And I'm going to be honest, I'm a few years older than you, Jesse. I'm only now looking back at my childhood, and I'm doing deep dives and doing work, over the last, say, 4 years, and realizing that you were, and this isn't me, and I wonder if you've seen this, you were more resilient than you gave yourself credit for. You got bullied on the playground, this happened, that happened, and, maybe it wasn't easy, but you got through it. And I never looked at it that way back then, and even halfway through my life. Do you look back now and say, I was damn good? Like I was able to navigate through, obviously with his help, but do you see it in a different way, how you were pretty powerful, even as a little kid?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, well, definitely, to much credit to Dr. Gold's support and support of teachers. Like the whole education system was really wonderful for me to just actually Dr. Gold would encourage me, which I kind of did naturally too. I love learning, but he would encourage me to really like pour myself into school and pour myself into that, community. So I would feel like I had, that going on that I could count on as well. But yeah, I would definitely say I thankfully, in a similar way, look back and just feel, I feel this sense of, I guess I could say accomplishment. I only say that because I was chatting with Dr. Gold actually just a couple days ago on the phone. And being 21, I'm grateful to have like a good sense of where some of my skills lie and the kind of work I want to do, but I'm still navigating what that will, fully look like, and want to get some more work experience before I commit to something like graduate school where I really zone in on one path. And I was actually telling Dr. Gold, like, having gotten his guidance, going through some pretty difficult conversations as a young person and just navigating a lot being young, I don't feel as intimidated by things like the interviewing process. For jobs that I'm applying for, I've kind of had to confront very difficult situations with my siblings, with my parents. And while, anyone, feels the anticipation for something like an interview or just any big event that happens in life, I feel like having gone through those pretty difficult things when I was young, I have something I'm going off of. It's not like the first time.
Gotcha. Yeah, it seems like we're focusing a little bit on self-esteem here, which is so important. Dr. Gold, how do you help children, be it a parent or you working with them, to build that self-esteem?
Yes, and it's absolutely critical these days. One of the things that I've been struck by is how difficult it is for parents these days to counteract everything negative that's going on in the country and the world. It's so easy now to put other people down. I don't want to be super political, but the role models that we have for our political leaders, just calling people stupid, and all these other negative comments, it just opens the door for, as I've talked before, for bullying and even for parents to criticize their kids. So part of the building of self-esteem is to teach kids kindness and respect. And I think it's so critical now. What does that mean? How do we teach kids kindness? How do we teach kids empathy? I mean, even Elon Musk said recently something about empathy was a bad thing for this country. When you get that kind of message, it's horrible. So when kids are very, very little, not very, very little, but, once they can talk and realize the impacts of their words and their behavior on other people, it's up to parents to put out the time and energy to help, to ask them what their behaviors might have done to other people. So part of that is just teaching kids from early on a vocabulary of emotions. Most kids will say, well, I'm scared or I'm angry or I'm happy, that kind of thing. But emotions have a lot more detail and specificity. So giving them the vocabulary so that they can learn to express their own, identify and express their own feelings is really important. But as I've said before, kids are criticized most of the time because they're learning how to do things. And how teachers and parents correct kids adds to their, either adds or subtracts from their self-esteem. If kids realize that growing up, you have to learn things and nobody's perfect and it takes time and energy and they have the skills and the motivation to do it, they don't have to feel bad when they make a mistake and are corrected. On the other hand, if all they get is, no, that's not the way to do it this way, you're stupid or you can't do it, what does that do to people's self-esteem? It's terrible. So as a school psychologist, I cared a lot about how kids felt about themselves. So I would ask kids starting maybe in third grade or so, what are they proud of? What do they like about themselves? And most kids would be able to say something like, oh, I'm good at basketball, or I'm a good reader, or I'm good at math, or and then as they move towards middle school, they would be able to identify more personal characteristics like I'm a really nice person, I'm a good friend, I can be funny. But then there were those kids who it was, and sometimes even parents, I would ask parents, tell me some really good things about your kid. And they would have a difficult time of it. And those are the ones that I worried the most about. And I would really work very hard to identify why they felt so negative about themselves. And the more I have grown up, I've seen how negative self-esteem impacts adults, even people my own age, because if they grew up feeling like they weren't capable, then they wouldn't take risks. I still work with people, kids and adults who don't want to take risks. They don't want to get out of their comfort zone because they're afraid that they will, like asking another kid to play or starting another activity that they've never done before, another skill. If they feel that they're incapable of doing that sort of thing because of how their parents treated them. So much of what I'm learning, and just even recently exposed, I have several friends I've talked to who have grown children. And I'm not talking about 21, I'm talking about 40s, and who are having difficulty with them, difficulty communicating, being rejected by their kids, things like that. And then having trouble with their grandchildren or their nephews or grandnieces and things like that. And what I'm seeing is that parents do not really think a lot about how they're raising their kids. Now, maybe that sounds mean on my part, but when the way parents raise their kids, and if they take enough time and care to develop to model kindness and empathy, to model respect, to work on effective communication with kids so that they're not hurt, that has a tremendous impact on how their kids grow up. And Jessie's a wonderful example for the way she thinks about herself and is able to reflect on herself and the way she communicates and how she treats other people. But if parents don't train their kids to do that, and don't go to therapy. Now, I'm not just trying to push therapy for, psychologists to make money, but I think it's absolutely critical. If communication between parents and children is not going well, they need to work on it when their kids are little, because they will pay the price when their kids are grown up. Uh, you know?
Would you say that that is one of the most important parts of parenting, communication?
Yes, absolutely. Um, for example, I don't know if you've heard of restorative parenting or restorative justice. Um, it's a method of dealing with uh, bad behavior, and we've used it in our schools. Regular punishment could be called retributive justice. You focus on making the person feel guilty, and you punish them when rules are broken, and you enforce the laws. And punishments can be long, and the person may not change or get better. That's common punishment, and the person who did wrong doesn't have much chance to talk or to apologize. So restorative justice is really a collaborative process. It can happen at schools and it can happen at home, where there's usually a circle of people, the relevant people, and the idea is to identify the harms that were created by the misbehavior. And the goal is to restore relationships and, promote healing among the people. So it's, you find the identified needs of the people, and the people who cause harm are still responsible for fixing what they did wrong, but working towards positive outcomes. So the process is usually a circle of people, and you focus primarily on the relationships and secondarily on the rules that were broken. So you give voice to the person who was harmed. So this is all part of communication. You let the person who was harmed talk and explain what the matter was. But you also give voice to the person or people who caused the harm. So like, what were you thinking of when you said this? Where were you? What were you trying to accomplish? And then you empower the possibility of change, which is really good. So you help the person who did the behavior really understand the effect of his or her behavior on the other person. And then you ask them, what do you think you need to do to make things right?
I love how that's presented in such a way that now it's on the child or the other person, and let them answer, as opposed to, I guess, being a dictator and saying, you did this, you get that.
Yeah, exactly. And you give them the opportunity to apologize and show remorse. Now, I won't say that everybody is a remorseful person. There are some psychopathic, sociopathic, narcissistic people who never admit that they're wrong. But most of my experience at school, when kids did something wrong, they were generally remorseful. It might have taken them a while to do that, but anyway, so you give them a chance to make things right. And at home, parents can do the same thing. Parents can talk about, when you called me the worst parent in the world, how do you think that made me feel? Because I love you, and I want to do the right thing, but I need to know how to do that. So, and then. I was really just angry, and that's another thing. I've talked to many kids about, how do you express your anger? And I don't know if I've mentioned on here before, but talking about hard feelings and soft feelings is really important. So to me, a hard feeling is anger or deep frustration or fury. And when a person expresses that to somebody else, either the response is, I'm not going to listen to you, or fighting back, saying something back, or just leaving, but the communication doesn't happen. So I've always thought that if and this is why it's so important to have a vocabulary of emotions. If you can dig a little deeper and find what is really creating that anger, it's often what I call a softer feeling, which is like confusion or hurt or anxiety or worry. Um, and if you can express a softer feeling to the other person, whether it's your parent, a parent to a child, or a kid to a peer, I think there's a greater chance that the other person will listen. So, and you use an I statement to do that. I'm feeling really confused. I don't know why you said that thing to me that hurt my feelings. Instead of, I'm so angry, you're the meanest person in the world, that's not going to get any, positive listening.
Well,
Or,
isn't that the difference between the I and the you? Instead of saying you did this, it's more of like
yeah,
this. I feel this way based on
yeah,
what somebody did.
yeah. And I've taught kids to use that with their parents too, and parents to use it with their kids. Because the parents always go, you,
Mm.
and so you feel attacked. So it takes some practice to do that, but that really, I think, helps with communication and at least it opens the door to, a parent trying to understand a child trying to understand a parent. Particularly I had my divorce groups, and I would teach kids how to use that when their parents would fight against them, or fight with each other in front of them, or say things about one parent in front of their kid or to their kid, instead of saying, Mom, shut up. I don't want to hear those things about dad. Or you two stop fighting. You are so mean to each other. Instead, if a child said something like, I feel really worried when you two fight with each other in front of me. I don't know what to do, and it makes me feel really nervous. And maybe they'll stop. Or, Dad, will you stop? When you say really awful things about mom, I feel really terrible because I love my mom. And, can you please not do that to me, or those kind of things. So hopefully there's more opportunity to really listen to the other person and try to communicate and identifying those real feelings underneath the anger. Yeah, we all get angry, and anger is often our first way of expression. But if we dig a little deeper and think about that, and that's another strategy I've taught. I don't know, again, if I've mentioned here, is how to manage anger. I think I've worked that with Jesse, and it works with anxiety too.
Mm.
Did I mention this, Steve, before about the 1 to 10 scale?
You didn't, but I use a 1 to 10 scale in just about everything in my life. Not even kidding.
Okay, let me
It's a good
explain.
baseline. Yeah.
It's a very good strategy. I remember, I would work with kids who would blow up at other kids over things like, oh, you didn't play with me at recess, or they'd get super mad at themselves too. Oh, I only got a B on my math test. I wanted an A. And I would talk to them about setting up rating things on a 1 to 10 scale, 1 being awful and 10 being wonderful. And I would start out asking them, tell me how much you like broccoli. And 1 is, I hate it so much I want to throw up when I hear the word. And 10 is, I could have broccoli for every meal of every day of my life. And so they would say, well, about 5 or something. And sometimes if they would say, well, like, how much do you like reading? And some kids would say 10. Well, that means that you wouldn't do anything else but read entirely. You'd never do anything else. So I would try to get them to, modulate their responses, an 8 is okay if you really, really like to read or play basketball or soccer. And I'd ask them, how nervous do you get when you have to stand up in front of your class and speak? And One would be so nervous I want to dig a hole and crawl into it and bury myself. And 10 is I can speak about anything and I don't even get a little tickle of nervousness. So, most people were, most kids could modify their responses that would be reasonable. And then I'd say, now I've got a really serious question to ask you. What's the worst thing you think could happen to you or anybody you loved? And most kids would say, well, they could die. And if they didn't say that, I would kind of lead them in that direction. So let's say a 1 is death. Somebody you love dies, or it could be a horrible accident or a terrible natural disaster or a terrible illness. Those are all 1s and 2s. Whereas 10 is like a perfect day where everything goes right. And then I would say, now, where would you put your friend calling you a jerk? Or where would you put your best friend not playing with you at recess? Or where would you put getting a bad grade on your test? And most kids would be able to put that as in the middle, 5, 6, 7, 4. If they said it was a 2 or a 1, then I would worry about those kids because they didn't have that perspective. And I would say, yes, it's annoying, it's frustrating. You have every right to feel a little troubled with that, but nobody's dying. And then I would ask them, why do you think I'm asking you to do this? And they really didn't quite understand. But I would say it's important to put these things in perspective because when you're really, really angry or really, really anxious about something, and I could do the same thing for anxiety, your brain isn't working very well. It's not coming up with good solutions to a difficult situation. But if you can calm yourself down and say, oh, wait, nobody's dying, take a few deep breaths, then your brain is better able to think about, okay, how can I solve this situation? I could leave it, which is okay. I could make an I statement and say, I'm feeling really left out because you didn't play with me. I don't understand it. Or you could say, that makes me uncomfortable, that comment you made. But you don't have to yell back and you don't have to blow up at the person or hit them, So I found that it can be pretty effective. And I found it effective with me too, actually. I don't know if I ever told you the story, but about 7 years ago, I came home from school and my microwave wasn't working. And I blew up. And, and I said, I was swearing and stomping up and down the stairs and I don't think I'd had a particularly bad day. Like I don't think it was the straw that broke the camel's back. But I talked to myself. Like 2 days later, I bought a new microwave, and that was all fine. And I would usually get mad about electronic things or computer stuff when it didn't work that I couldn't control, because we like to be in control of things. But anyway, so I said to myself, why don't you listen to what you teach kids and do that yourself? Now, I was in my early 70s then, and it took that long to straighten myself out. But anyway, so
but I get it. I've had that happen before too, and especially if it's a microwave that's installed over your range or underneath the cabinet. Now it's not, just go buy it, put it in the box with you. Now there's work involved in that. I get it.
Yeah. So what I've observed in my own life is that I don't get mad anymore. I mean, I can be mad about things that I like, political things like that. But if something happens to me directly, I'm pretty calm about it, and I can, figure out a way to solve the problem.
Now, I want to ask you at this moment, based on that, have you found in doing this work and having these realizations that when you are triggered with some anger, frustration, somebody cuts you off in traffic, that the time to recover from it is much shorter once you're more intentional about it?
Yes, absolutely. And I would ask kids, about their parents' example. I said, if somebody cuts your mom or dad off on traffic, do they get mad? And that's what they usually see.
Mm,
Swearing at the other driver or whatever it is.
mm.
But yeah, the time for recovery, it becomes more of a problem solving. Okay, how am I going to deal with this in an effective way? Do I need to ask somebody for help? Can I figure it out myself? Um, but yes, it's a good strategy, and I've talked to kids who, I've taught that, and they said, yeah, I tried that, and it really helped. I calmed down, and I spoke to the kid who was saying not nice things to me, and they stopped. Does it work all the time? No. Do we always have total control over our immediate reaction? No. But I do find, yeah, to answer your question, I do find that it takes a much shorter time to, correct it.
Jesse, we talked about communication, and in general, teens, children communicating with others, but also their parents. Have any thoughts on that? Even just communicating with parents?
Yeah, so many. I think, I think part of the reason that Dr. Gold and I, are able to connect so well is that we're both very, um, I would just say naturally, like mindful of always wanting to be kind and respectful to others. And I always try to lead with that.
Mm,
Um, and especially when like addressing a difficult conversation or situation, like I really will try to put myself in the other person's shoes and just like I want to come in with as much softness as possible. Like Dr. Gold was saying, the difference between hard feelings and soft feelings. I know a lot of people who kind of address things with more of that hard approach, not necessarily all the time, but here and there. And um, something that's like very important to me just in my life in general is my faith. And so whenever I'm going into a difficult conversation, I will always pray beforehand and say, God, I pray to be most effective in this conversation. Like, I do not want to have any control over the outcome. I surrender control to the outcome. But I do pray that, whatever is meant to happen out of this conversation, that like I can just be in it in a way that can help bring out the best possible outcome, and be most effective. And oftentimes that means like sacrificing my own pride, sacrificing, anger that I may want to express and reframing it in a way that's like, I'm hurt, And that's really difficult when it's with somebody who doesn't also have that softer approach, because I recognize that like I might be saying I'm hurt and then I might get like slammed down again by them. But still, it's like it's even though that can take a little bit of a toll, like, temporarily, just in that moment on maybe how I feel about myself, like I know in the long run, like I would much, much rather have that approach and just like, ultimately surround myself with people who have a similar communication style most of the time, because I never want to bring it's completely unfair to bring any negativity that you have onto another person. It's just not the right thing to do.
it seems like you've mastered the realization that you can't control everything, and
Mhm.
and everything is a choice. How you react is a choice. Everything we do, 5 seconds from right now, 5 days, 5 months, 5 years, whatever it might be, it's our choice. We really do. We can't control those situations that present themselves. We always have a choice of how we react to it. And it sounds like, thanks to Dr. Gold, you picked up on that a long time ago.
Yeah. And that's what I was saying is so important for parents to model and teach their kids.
Mm,
Because, no, everybody's not going to be the best athlete in the world, the best scholar in the world, but we all have the opportunity and the capacity to be good, kind people. And
Mhm.
that's what upsets me now here. I am angry about, and when I dig deeper, it's real strong disappointment and fear that's another thing is what's people being afraid, when they're angry. I think there's a tremendous amount of fear in this country at this point. Fear of immigrants, fear of anybody who's different, LGBTQ people. There's just a tremendous underlying fear that most people don't even recognize or won't even talk about. And so what comes out is expressions of anger. The whole ICE thing to me is like the Gestapo in Nazi Germany. And it's just horrible the way people are being treated. And so those people who were doing that, did their parents teach them to be kind, to be, good people? Because we all have the opportunity, and unless I say somebody's a total narcissist, to really, as Jesse said, to think, put yourself in somebody else's shoes and think how they're going to feel. But we have that opportunity to really excel and to be, a kind person. So I think, as I said in the beginning, it's even harder now with the whole society operating in a different way, for parents to really spend a lot of time and energy talking about or teaching empathy and teaching kindness and giving compliments. We talked about self-esteem. How much do parents and teachers actually give kids compliments? And it doesn't have to be only, a huge accomplishment, but it can be anything. Thank you that was really nice of you to pick up your table mate's book that fell on the floor. Or thank you so much for, saying what you said in a nice, respectful way, or for thanking me, or opening the door. They can be all little things. And the more parents model that with each other too, and with their children and the way they treat their friends, kids pick up on all of that stuff. They really do. Parents kind of think that, oh, well, she's only 5 years old. She's not going to know what I'm doing. Not, kids are very observant.
Oh my gosh. It is so, pinnacle moment right here where and it's always been said, well, the kid's a sponge. They hear everything. See, it's so much more, as I've learned, and even doing hypnotherapy, looking back into my childhood and earliest memories, being 3 and the situation, you don't forget it. It's in there. It's made the imprint, and potentially it's charted the course for your adult life. And many parents don't. I'm not putting any parents under the bus, but we don't realize it. And even the language that we use. Now that I know that, I would have parented a little bit differently. I really would. Now that I know how I phrase things, even I would, be the goofy dad. I'd come up with fun names for my kids. It could change from day to day. It wasn't anything mean spirited. It was just kind of goofy. Well, now when I look at it, I was like, you know what? Maybe they could have internalized it as I'm calling them names, and they even played along with it. But when I look at it again, and I'm just giving a little example here, I look at it in a different way now.
But those are the things that, parents should probably realize. There's nothing bad about being goofy with your kids. I mean, I think that's good. But just to sort of to check in and to say, when I call you that silly name, are you okay with that? And some kids would be, oh yeah, Dad, that's fine.
Sure.
But other kids would say, that kind of hurts my feelings, and then you stop. I think it's very important to realize, for parents to realize that what they say has an impact, and they just need to check it out. With kids and kids, or parents and kids, it's good to check up on these things we say. But everybody's so busy now in their computer and everything else, they don't take the time to check on these things. And also for parents to apologize. That's another thing, to really recognize, I'm really sorry I blew up at you and I was angry. I really, really apologize for that. I'm going to try not to do it again. Have your Jesse, have your parents ever apologized to you for anything?
They have. And it's very impactful. It really, really is. Because, obviously I haven't been a parent yet myself, but it takes, I can only imagine it takes like an incredible amount of humility. It really, and, even just a couple of weeks ago when one of my parents, was in a little, I don't want to say anger. It wasn't like a big intense situation, but just like I think got a little snippy with me. And they ended up saying like, I'm really sorry about that. Like if I were in your shoes, I would not have wanted to be communicated with that way. I'm really, really sorry about that. It 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 diffused a lot of tension and like it makes me I already respect my parents very much, but it makes me grow in respect for them. It
Mm.
really does. And that modeling, you know, it makes it so that I feel like I would be able to do that with my own kids, Like
Hmm.
when you see that, it's like just like how those, young childhood experiences like leave an imprint, so do the positive experiences. And like that was again, like even though that was not like a very big or intense situation, like that moment was very impactful to me, and I will probably carry that with me the rest of my life.
Good,
Mm.
good. And I think that's related to self-esteem too, because not yours, but your parents. If a parent really can admit that they made a mistake, it doesn't have to be all, black and white. It doesn't, if I admit I'm a mistake, that means I'm a horrible person, so I'm not going to do it. And a lot of this is
Mm.
unconscious or subconscious. Um, and to be able to recognize, yeah, we're human beings. We all make mistakes, and it's perfectly appropriate to apologize and to try to not do it again. If you have a decent self-esteem, and grew up feeling like, yeah, it's normal to make mistakes, and I can work on it. Then, as a parent, you can, when you make a mistake with your kids, you can do that also. So these are all interconnected, all of these things, whether it's respect or kindness or self-esteem or dealing with anger, they're all very connected skills that we all have to develop. And for parents to, what does it take for a parent to recognize that, I'm kind of messing this up. I need some outside help.
Mm.
And some parents do it. They do get therapy and they do work on their skills.
Sure. How
But
about anxiety? Can we talk about that? Because it's
yeah,
huge more than ever now.
more
Uh,
than ever now. Yeah.
yeah, and I'd love to look at it between both of your lenses on this. Dr. Cole, what would you suggest for a parent dealing with their child that has anxiety?
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing is communication. What are they scared of? And it may be related to self-esteem. Oh, I'm so worried about this test. I'm going to screw it up, that kind of thing. So it may be that they're feeling bad about their skills, and but it may be some outside threat. Like I'll tell you a quick story. So I got a call last week from somebody I didn't know who wanted to um, uh, check my furnace downstairs to see if it was still working for $49. And for some reason, I
Mm.
agreed, and I made an appointment for yesterday morning at 10 o'clock. And after I got off the phone, I thought, I don't know this company. There's nothing the matter with my furnace. Are they going to come into the house and mess around with the furnace so that I have to pay a lot of money to get it fixed? Or are they going to try to murder me? So I was actually anxious about it. I talked to my own therapist about it, and a friend, and I ended up yesterday morning typing a letter on or a note on the front door and taped it to the front door saying that, sorry, I didn't have your phone number, which I didn't, to cancel this appointment, but I'm nothing the matter with my furnace and I don't know your company. Please don't contact me again. And I put on the alarm and I was kind of peeking out the window. So yes, I was anxious. And fortunately, I never heard anybody come, so it was probably a scam of some sort, but nobody ever came. But, sometimes when outside threats are there, and parents want to protect their kids. Oh, that's another topic that I wanted to talk about, which is helicopter parenting. And I don't have to go into it too deeply, but we've seen a lot of that where they have the anxiety. They're really worried about their kids. And I think that gets communicated to kids too. But research has shown that helicopter parenting is not very helpful because we're producing kids that don't have independence and problem-solving skills. And even as overprotective as my parents were, they kind of let me walk around San Francisco when I was a kid. And when I was in college, I didn't call every day to, deal with a problem. Kids need to develop that themselves. So, not that they can't ask their friends for assistance or something like that, but to deal with the anxiety, find out what's making them anxious. If it's something about their skills, you can kind of calm them down. So like, what do you need? What will you need to do to feel more secure? And like I might have said another one of the most useful expressions ever told to me. It was the night before my PhD orals, and I was absolutely sure that the professors were going to find out how stupid I really was, and because I didn't know what they were going to ask. And I had group therapy, and one of the psychologists, she said, honor your fears. And that has always stuck with me to recognize that some things are just scary. And she didn't say to me, oh, don't worry about it, you'll do fine. She said, honor your fears, which is part of going through life. We have challenges that we have to get through, and we will get through them. So, and again, it depends on what the anxiety is all about. If you're afraid to go someplace all by yourself, you ask somebody to go with you. Yeah, Jesse, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was just going to chime off of that because that's a lesson that you taught me a couple of years ago when I was going through something. I can't even remember what it was at this point, but that's also been a really helpful tool for me going through life as, I was in college and just as a young adult in general, that like, there's a quote that says the same thing. It's like bravery or courage is not the absence of fear. It's like the ability to walk through it.
Yes.
And I also believe that the only way over pain is straight through it. Like you have to walk through the fire. Like you must not avoid what's in front of you. And again, just having those opportunities earlier in life where I worked with Dr. Gold to push through those fires was really impactful and beneficial to me. And then in terms of helicopter parenting, I do wrestle with this with one of my parents where there can be this, and it comes out of care. I can fully recognize that it comes out of care. It comes out of loving me. It comes out of wanting the best for me, to want to be really involved in my life. And so I really appreciate that so much. And I also recognize that, not only am I 21, but I also grew up relatively quickly. So I've always had more of an independent way of going about things. And so it's a bit tricky when I kind of feel that level of like micromanaging or control. And I've learned that I have to say no. Like there are times that I have to set boundaries because I need that ability to figure things out for myself. one of the biggest things that happened for me in college and a route of reconnecting with Dr. Gold is that I was going to a polytechnic school that's renowned for engineering, and I became an engineering major. But as I was in that major, it just was not feeling aligned for me. I had the grit. I knew I would be able to get through it, but it did not feel aligned with my personality, my sensitivity, frankly, like my emotions. Like I just was not feeling that like deeper sense of alignment. And I ended up facing, from one parent, there was just acceptance and support and this level of trust that I was going to figure it out and I was going to be okay. And that was huge for me, huge, because like you do so much questioning when you're young, like being 19 years old and like trying to figure that out. I mean, that was a huge, like, that was a very big decision for me to make. And so knowing that I was just loved and accepted and that there was a level of trust for me and just like, I'm proud of you. I know that you're incredibly capable. Like, I know that you are going to make the best decisions for yourself. That's what I really needed because at the end of the day, like the other parent that was more concerned and just kind of worried about me going into more of a humanities major and ultimately profession, I, as much as I do respect their perspective, their advice did not change the outcome at all.
Mm-hmm.
Their level of control, their level of micromanaging, it made no difference. And it actually just caused me to react with boundaries because I couldn't handle that, what felt like negativity, what felt like putting me down. I know that's not what it really was. I know that it really was care, but that way of communicating it didn't work for me. And so I just think it's important, when I think about my own children, something Dr. Gold and I have talked about is that like when you can clarify which age, but we were talking about this the other day, that there comes a point when a child is developing that the parent can become more of a consultant rather than like a parent who's telling you what to do. And I think like parents who are able to kind of like learn that lesson at the appropriate time of development for their child, it makes a huge difference to the child. Like that parent who just loved me and supported me and continues to have that same approach, I feel so comfortable being completely open about my life. I have nothing to, I don't feel like I have to harbor anything to myself. I can talk about things as personal as if I go on a date or something. I feel totally comfortable sharing my life with that parent who didn't feel the need to control.
There's no judgment.
No judgment whatsoever. None.
And beautifully said. And you, in the beginning, talked about that parent that was a little more concerned about your situation. But interestingly, you didn't say, you stated it, and you could have said, but you didn't use the word but. You used the word and, because that would have negated anything you had said. So you're riding on the positivity train there. I don't think you realized you were doing it. Yeah, amazing. And I just want to interject here about overprotection. My mom was overprotected or protective. Guess what I was? Same exact thing with my kids until I realized that probably about 8 years ago. And I was just like, whoa, wait, what am I doing here? If you're going to fall in my mind, if you're going to fall off your bike, all right, whatever, fall off your bike. You'll be fine. Instead of me like worrying about it and all the other things that go along with that. But that was me. I was my mom. And she's just doing her thing and I appreciate it and loved everything that she's done. But I turned into that. And I think, that also for a lot of kids could fuel anxiety as well. And there's a lot of other things in there. But it takes time to realize those things, right?
Yeah, because that really does increase anxiety. Oh, mom's going to be really worried. Maybe I better not do this. And it's not just about her reaction, but kids internalize that worry. Now, some kids are the exact opposite. They'll do something. They're risk takers and they want to be defiant. But I think the fear that parents have really does filter down into the kids, just like you said, Steve, and they don't want to take, but most kids, I don't know about all kids, but not everybody is a risk taker, but kids want to experiment with things. They want to try things out. And I mean, it's one thing to try out, marijuana, liquor, and sex, before, it's time to do that, or if at all. But, it's small risks like, trying a new skill, taking a musical instrument or acting on the stage or, taking a dance class or an art class or something. You want kids to not feel anxious about all of that. And by the way, what Jesse was saying about going from manager to consultant, it's probably around 8 years old or so. And usually around social interactions, when the parent isn't directly involved, but the parent can learn to be a consultant to help the child figure out their own solution to the problem. And then as they get older and older, kids don't want to be managed, and but a parent, if they have good communication with their parent and the child feels comfortable talking to them, then they can use the parent as a consultant. But I've seen situations where maybe a parent has a kid still in my school district, but they have a college kid, and the college kid's calling them every day for advice on how to do something. And that's where the helicopter parenting has its negative effects. Certainly a kid in college should have some opportunity to figure out basic little problems.
So much insight today. Truly appreciate it, Dr. Gold. We could keep going. I mean, we loosely had some things we wanted to talk about, and I think we got to maybe half, and that's a good thing because we went into depth. And Jesse, thank you for your insight and your journey to this point, and also your journey with Dr. Gold. Both of you, thank you very much for being here today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes?
How could he do this to you? And for Sheila, she has split ends.
B, console her?
Oh, sweetie, this is going to happen a lot. 4, maybe 5 more times before you get married.
C, take charge?
Got to get this all straightened out. Give a little talking to, man to man, mano a mano. Hey, Steve! It's now a good time? No? Okay, no problem. Bye.
Or D, help her find a new boyfriend?
I know a great place to meet boys. The internet. Nice, single boys. Never mind. How about some ice cream?
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.